Welcome back, guys, to yet another World of Warcraft video on this channel. Today we are going to be talking about level 11 Fury Warrior Twinks. That's what we're going to be talking about today. There is some quite wonderful, maybe a little bit questionable scaling going on with these characters these days, especially recently with the changes to how time walking is scaled. So, because it's something that we've been doing over on the live stream at twitch.tv/TancerFull, I wanted to make this video because I've made twinking videos in the past a couple of years ago that kind of go over, okay, how to gear it, what do you need, how do you get started, what is it good for, all that stuff. Now, obviously, based on the title, you can probably see that I've said, okay, well, it takes about, give or take, 4 hours to go from 10 to 70, and I would actually say that that's a lot higher than you can get. You can probably get it down to 3 hours or 3.5 hours if you really start min-maxing, which is really what this video is for. I'm gonna put in all of my tips and tricks for what you can do to make your character better, to increase the gear, your stats, also for places that you can AFK with ults, or if you're boosting friends or other people for gold, you can also do that. You don't have to just boost your own accounts. But yeah, I'll be talking about how to queue up, how you can best optimize each dungeon run, and then of course what it does, how it looks, and all of that stuff. That's what this video is for. But before we do get into it, make sure that you guys check out Goldcapped in the description below, probably also in the pinned comments. It's a great place to support me as well with the link. You can get yourself 10% off. It is a great place to be, full of gold making guides for every version of WoW. And you can also join the Discord, where there's a premium part of the section. Well, premium part of the Discord, and in that section you can talk to the entire team that we have on there all the time and ask any gold making questions that you want. But that's everything that I had to say for that, so let's get straight into the video. So what I'm going to start out with is the gear that you need to get started. So the way that I got started is I went to the celebration area specifically that we have active right now, and I feel like it's okay to mention the celebration area because right now, at the time of recording this video, we still have about 2 months of this celebration event left. Now, when that does leave, it's actually not going to be that much of an issue because you will still be able to get time walking gear. I will say that it might take a little bit longer just to get started, or you might need a friend or two just to help carry you through the dungeons, or you can just do random dungeons with other people. But to get started, all you need is a couple hundred time warp badges because, and I'll show you right over here, at the celebration area, there is a particular vendor, Bubba Dormer, right here. This little NPC sells a lot of time warp gear. Now, at level 11, you can get level 54 gear. Now, there's going to be boots, a helmet, bracers, rings, by the way, which you can buy 2 off because it's not unique. There's going to be a cape, and then you can also get 2 of the Pendulum of Dooms because you can equip 2 of these. The other thing that you would need to get started is the enchant weapon lifestealing. Now, on the auction house, at least on EU, this is only a couple of 100 gold on the auction house, so it should be pretty easy for you to get. Otherwise, there's also the formula, so you can make it for yourself. But regardless, this enchant is very, very cheap these days, and it is something that you absolutely need, because if you don't get it, you will be lacking a lot of damage. Not only damage, but also a lot of healing, because every single time this procs, it does damage based on the proc, and it heals you for that proc. Now, the good thing about Fury Warriors in particular is when you use Whirlwind, it has a higher chance to proc, which means you are constantly healing yourself for quite a lot. So it's super, super important to get. Now, the other thing that is super important is obviously all the other rest pieces of gear. Now, you can see here that a lot of the stuff that I have is level 60. This is all stuff that's dropped straight out of the dungeons that we've been doing. Right now, it is the Burning Crusade. You can see this one in particular is a level 30 piece. This is from Chromie Time. So you can go into Chromie Time specifically for TBC, and if you go to Hellfire Ramparts or the Blood Furnace, you will be able to get this one, this particular 30 level piece, this one here as well. And then there's a couple other items you can get in some of the other ones if you want to. But the build that I have here right now, I have no issues in any of the dungeons with completing them. I never die, and I never have any issues. I mostly can just press W and continue walking the entire time. So if you want to min-max any further than this, you are more than welcome to. just to show you guys a couple of the items here. I will also be trying to link the WoW Armory for this character so you guys can follow along for what it has. Unfortunately, WoW Armory has been a little buggy for the last couple of weeks, so if you don't see a link, just make sure to use search up this name here, Fake Sebi, and this character is on Terran Mill. So if I haven't put a link into the description or in the pinned comments, then that is because it still does not work. So you can search this character up yourself and see if it works for you. And this is also an EU, by the way. But that's mostly everything that's super important for when you get going. To make your life a little bit easier, as you can see here, I have the Heirloom Trinket. This will actually sacrifice 10% of your health to increase your movement speed by about 40%, which is pretty good. If you can make this work, you have a lot of extra movement speed. The other thing that I've bought are swiftness potions. These are great because it increases your run speed by 50% for 15 seconds. Absolutely amazing. They're usually pretty cheap on the auction house. And the other thing, in case I sometimes don't pay attention or get stunned or feared for a long time, a super healing potion for a little over 200 health is pretty nice to sometimes survive a very close encounter. Now, as for the actual enchants and stuff, there's a lot of different enchants that you can do. I would usually just go for the ones that give you, you know, speed or overall stats, like you can see here, all stats, or in this case, you know, whether it's haste or mastery, it doesn't really matter too much. The smaller secondary stats are very, very minimal, so you don't have to worry about it too much. So if you can just get, you know, main stat or you can get speed, that's what you want. A really important thing when you're boosting with a Twink is making sure that you have this particular macro. This macro will help you get around the permanent experience debuff when you're queuing with the Twink. There's a couple other ways to do this, but this is by far the fastest and easiest way to get around it. So this is going to be the one that I'll be talking about today. Now, this macro right here, what it does is when you queue into a dungeon, it'll accept that dungeon queue, and it will also leave the party at the same time. So when you're in a party with all the people that you're going to be boosting, then that is what it'll do. Now, what you want to make sure that you do when you actually have this macro, I'll be linking it in the description down below, is that you accept the queue on every other character that you have, or if it's your friends or other boosters. And then the last one to accept the queue has to be the Twink, because when you click this button, I'll show you right now, as I said, it leaves the party at the same time as it accepts the queue, which means when we actually get into this dungeon, as you can see right here, these alts will not have the experience debuff. And that is the best way to get around the experience debuff at the current moment. So what you're looking at here is specifically the underbug. And to show you guys kind of like the idea behind it, you can put your alts on follow, whether it's your own alts or it's friends that you have or it's people that you are boosting. Just make sure they follow you along until a particular AFK spot when you have found it. I don't have the exact locations for every single expansion just yet, but as I gather them up, I'll probably make an updated video in the future so you guys can see that when we have the entire list. But just to give you guys an idea, this is the spot that you want to put it for as an example in the underbug. And specifically in here, you can see that once they make it here, you are in the middle of the dungeon, which means you can speed run on your Twink and absolutely murder everything, and they still get the experience. That's what you want, right? Because if they end up getting the experience for the entirety of the dungeon, they're going to get way faster leveling that will speed up by a lot. Okay, so it does actually make it so if you're boosting other people or friends or whatever, they have to somewhat pay attention depending on the dungeon that you're in and depending on the spot that you find yourself in. And that might mean that sometimes it's maybe a little annoying to deal with, but it will speed the process up a lot. You can also just leave them at the beginning of a dungeon. They will still get the end of dungeon experience reward. And if you decide, hey, I'm just going to be speed running on my ult instead, or on my Twink, I mean, I'm going to be speed running all the way to the end so I can actually just full send it and then join up to the next dungeon, join up to the next dungeon. Depending on the expansion, it might actually also be a good idea. But just to give you guys a perspective as to why you would do something like that, it increases your overall experience game by a whole ton. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily twice as fast, but it's definitely like 30-ish% faster based on my own testing, at least for the TBC dungeons, okay? But again, If you guys have any questions for something like that, or if you're wondering if I have a location, make sure that you drop that question down in the comments below. Now, that is pretty much what we have for that section of the video. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was when it comes to the actual speed of being able to boost other people in these dungeons. The thing that slows you down a lot is when you're queuing with a twink, and some of you may already know this depending on whether or not you've done twinks before, but when it comes to twinks and you're queuing up, even with a full party, you might end up in a situation where you have to wait a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Sometimes the queues just take a while, and there's nothing you can really do about that. There are some workarounds, but they're really annoying, and they're also kind of weird, so I don't really want to mention those, and I don't do it myself, so I would rather just say, hey, if you're waiting on a queue, it's just a nice little break, and it's not that big of a deal because it's not very long anyway, more than a couple of minutes usually. But again, it takes about 3.5 to 4 hours to level, or well, boost one toon from 10 to 70. That can be a little bit faster in case we have some particular events or whatever going at the time that you're boosting. The thing that will also make this a lot faster is if whoever you're boosting, or if it's your own alts, if they have the 25% warband bonus, warband experience bonus, which is a global buff that you will get. Everything that you need to do is have the war within on your account, and then obviously have 5 level 80s. If you don't have that, it will be considerably slower by about 25% in terms of experience gains. So again, if you don't have that, you're going to be slowing yourself down a lot. So I would definitely recommend getting 5 level 80s before you start boosting like this. I would assume most of you have that anyway, or if you're boosting friends or random people for gold, well, then you probably just don't care because you're getting paid for it in gold anyway. But I mostly covered everything that I wanted to, particularly in here. There's a lot of like small tips and tricks on how to get around certain things in some dungeons, but it won't really make sense for me to cover those because at the time that you're watching this video, TBC might not even be up anymore, and we might be in a completely different rotation. And I could eventually make, depending on how long twinks last, unless they nerf them again, I could potentially in the future make a full guide as to see, okay, well, this is how you do absolutely every dungeon to its fully min-maxed perspective. That is something that we could consider, but that is something that will be months away because the entire rotation takes a while to go through. But again, this is super important. This is actually also super fun. So if this is something that you guys are interested in, make sure that you full send it and absolutely get into it because it's great. It's fun. Twinks are always great. I've talked about them many times in the past. It's a different way to boost if you don't like other old versions of maybe something like No Coot or Brackenhide and Dragonflight. And again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel with all the notifications on, because that would be greatly appreciated and it helps out with the algorithm as well. But that is everything I had for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.